Intermittent fasting. You've seen it everywhere, right? It's one of the biggest health trends on the planet. Some people swear by it, saying it's a total game changer for your brain and body. But you also hear these warnings that it could be seriously risky. So, what is the real story here? Let's get into it and look at both sides of the coin. So, that's the big question we're tackling today. Is this thing a miracle diet, a dangerous fad, or is it something way more complicated? We're going to dig into the science, looking at what the actual research says about the good and the bad. Okay, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Intermittent fasting, or IF as you'll hear it called, it's not about what you're eating. Nope, it's all about when you eat. It's basically a pattern that cycles you between your normal eating times and periods where you voluntarily fast. Now, there are a few different ways people do this, but you've probably heard of these too. On one hand, you've got time-restricted eating. The most famous version is the 16-8 method. You fast for 16 hours and then eat all your meals in an 8-hour window. Then there's alternate day fasting, which is exactly what it sounds like and includes things like the 5-2 diet. But no matter the method, the main idea is the same, giving your body a really solid break from digesting food. So why is everyone so hyped about this? What's the big deal? Well, let's start with the promise of IF, and I mean the actual science behind it. What is going on inside our bodies during a fast that has researchers so excited? Well, it all kicks off with something called the metabolic switch. See, normally our bodies just run on glucose, sugar from the food we eat. It's our easy go-to fuel. But after about 10 or 12 hours without food, we burn through all that, and our body has to pivot. It starts breaking down fat for energy instead, and in the process, it creates these things called ketones. And one of these ketones, BHB, is kind of like a super fuel for your brain. And here's where it gets really cool. This metabolic switch seems to set off a whole chain reaction of cellular upgrades. Fasting can boost something called BDNF, which is basically like fertilizer for your brain cells, super important for learning and memory. It also kicks off autophagy, which is like your body's internal cleanup crew, getting rid of old, damaged cells. You even get an upgrade to your energy factories, the mitochondria, and you see a drop in body-wide inflammation. It sounds pretty amazing, right? But, and this is a huge but, that incredible potential is only one side of the coin. The conversation about fasting often, and I mean often, skips right over the perils, and they can be serious, ranging from mood issues all the way to malnutrition. So now we have to look at the other side. This table really lays it all out. On the left, you see all those potential benefits that get people excited. Better blood sugar, less inflammation, things like that. But then, you look at the right side, and that's a list of very real problems. Fatigue, headaches, mood swings, and a big one, an increased preoccupation with food, which can really mess with your head. And you don't have to just take my word for it. This quote from a big review in the journal Nutrients just nails it. They call fasting a bidirectional tool. That's key. On one side, yes, it can be amazing. But on the other, when it's misapplied, it can be psychopathology triggering. That's a scientific way of saying it can seriously trigger mental health problems. It all comes down to who is doing it and how. And these psychological risks are no joke. For anyone with a history of an eating disorder, IF can be like throwing gasoline on a fire. It can throw your mood completely out of whack, especially if you already have something like bipolar disorder. And look at that last statistic. A study found that up to 38%, almost 4 in 10 college students who were doing IF actually met the criteria for an eating disorder. That is staggering. This is not something to just jump into lightly. Okay, now we need to talk about the single most serious physical risk. It's something that is almost never mentioned in all those viral posts about fasting, but it is absolutely critical to understand. We're talking about the danger of refeeding. Let's just be 100% clear on this. I'm not going to soften it. The act of reintroducing food after you've been undernourished can, in some cases, be fatal if it's not done carefully and correctly. This is a real, documented clinical danger. The condition is called refeeding syndrome. So what happens is when a body that's been starved suddenly gets a rush of food, especially carbs, it causes a huge insulin spike. This triggers massive, rapid shifts in key electrolytes like phosphate, potassium, and magnesium as they're pulled out of your blood and into your cells. The most dangerous part is a severe drop in phosphate, and that can lead to heart failure, respiratory failure, basically widespread organ failure. So who needs to be worried about this? The official guidelines are really clear. And listen, This isn't just about people with diagnosed eating disorders. It could be anyone with very little food intake for more than 10 days. Anyone with a very low BMI, or who's lost a lot of weight quickly without trying. This is exactly why medical supervision is not just a good idea, it's non-negotiable. So, after looking at the incredible promise, but also the very, very serious perils, what's the final verdict here? Well, it's not really a simple yes or no. It's more of a powerful warning to be extremely cautious and to recognize this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. The research makes it pretty obvious that for some groups of people, intermittent fasting is just a hard no. The risks are way too high. That includes anyone with a history of eating disorders, anyone pregnant or breastfeeding, people with certain medical conditions like unstable mood disorders or uncontrolled diabetes. It's just not worth the gamble. So here it is. This is the big takeaway. If you remember one single thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Before you even think about trying intermittent fasting, before you dramatically change when you eat, your absolute non-negotiable first step is to talk to a doctor or a registered dietitian, someone who actually knows you and your health history. Look, intermittent fasting is a powerful, powerful tool. There's no doubt about it. It can trigger some profound changes in our biology, for better and for worse. The science shows us that it really tests the limits of our body. But maybe the bigger question it asks is this: does it also test our judgment?